better watch out if your enemy's a road ahead, a full prophecy to be the greatest beast the world has ever seen. I feed him every day like the bones clean. I feed him all the hate and he grows me, and he gets caught real big, pissed off quick. And if you cross him, you might drop dead. Metaphorically, of course, settling the score, never getting bored. Lots of blood and gore, always wanting more freedom from the source. They don't really listen until they feel the force of blood in. If you start shit, you be hard lived in the darkness. Torn apart quick, you let scars rip, you be chewed up and discarded. And this world ain't right, won't accept it. Negative energy, I expect it. Once it's in your mind, it's infectious. So fight for your life and reject it. You better get...
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the show. As you can see, Liz is back. So we're going to be talking... Actually, we're not talking about education entirely today. Partially.
Well, sort of.
In a way.
So today is all going to be about how white men, especially in America, have been radicalized by, let's be honest, Russian propaganda. It's been Putin's dream. It was the KGB's dream to be able to overthrow American democracy from within. And how did they do it? They targeted naive and racist white men. They targeted women too, but that's a whole nother topic. So when Mike and I first started this show, and I'm not a woman, so I can't obviously talk on that. But when Mike and I started this show, we promised that we would use our white privilege for the forces of good. We think it's very important, especially for white men that are not for all this shit that's going on, to speak out. We have to let the world know that we are not like that, okay? It's a very small part of the population who has now proudly labeled themselves, you know, they're easy to see now, even though they're trying now to take the Trump signs, the Trump flags down, now that they realize they've been screwed. But we remember who you are.
Yep.
You're our neighbors. We saw the signs in your front yard, so you're not getting away from us that easy.
We have pictures.
Yes, we do. We have all.
We have the
evidence.
receipts. Aha! I'm
Right?
cool. I said a
Digital
cool kid
footprint is everything these days. So, yeah. All right. If I remember correctly, for the election, and I could be foggy here, but 2 out of 3 white men that voted in this past election voted for Kamala Harris. I mean, I'm sorry, for Donald Trump and not Kamala Harris.
Right.
Mike and I voted for Kamala Harris because we have brains that function.
Morality, a sense of justice.
Right.
I like history.
To me, it shows that this country is obviously still very racist. They're completely open about it now. Donald Trump literally tried to cancel Black History Month and then was so nice and gave it back. Here you go. You can have your month. Like,
By the
seriously.
way, happy Black History Month.
That's right. We will be celebrating
Don't let anyone take
all
away
month
your
long.
history.
So we are living
It's
in an
not
era
going anywhere.
of toxic masculinity, where white men, they could have no teeth, live in a trailer with no windows, and somehow they are convinced that they are superior to somebody that is black or brown.
That's the whole goal, is to make a group of people that is an easy target, to make them charged against what you want them to stand against. So
Right.
the right has found a group that has always been a strong, let's just say, not friendly group towards progress, young white men. And they notice that over the past few decades, society has been like, you know what? Maybe we don't have to fall into strict ideologies and roles anymore. Maybe we can all just be our better selves. And somehow along the way, it was decided to turn that message into, hey guys, they're taking away their manliness from you. They're going to make you not as good as the women's and the browns and the blacks. And they found a targeted group that is willing to listen to their propaganda. And they found a group that, I think, Liz, something you found that's interesting is they're not all just bad from the get-go. We're giving an outlet to people who are searching for something. And when you cut off one avenue, another one is going to come to take its place. And I think that's the overarching theme, is we have to try and reshift the narrative to give young white men a real lesson in what they can be. And it is far more liberating to be on the side of progressives than it is on the side of the conservatives. I can promise you that.
What the right wing did, unfortunately, very well, is they were boots on the ground, man. They had people like Charlie Kirk and what's that kid's name that got let off for murder?
Rittenhouse.
Kyle Rittenhouse.
Mhm.
They
made him a
paid.
hero.
They are getting paid to go to colleges all
Right.
over the country and try and recruit, groom, and then radicalize white men. That's what this is all about. It's honestly why we're in the situation we're in. Because, I mean, and Kamala Harris's campaign, because Donald Trump's campaign was all about white people. That's this whole campaign. That's what he focused on. And I think maybe, I don't know how these people think, that Kamala Harris didn't focus enough on, like, why do we need more attention?
But that's the problem, is we're teaching a bunch of people that if it's not about them, it's against them. Right. And that's what it's always been, because we have such a society that was always about the man first, everything down. And when you realize that that's not the inherent, course of our nature, that's an imposed structure. And when you start to lift that structure and don't provide guidance, well, we got interrupted. And I think we'll talk about that a little later, Liz, how you have some theories about why this void that we're seeing in expectation for young men turned into a disaster for us. But before we go any further, we have another guest today. Liz?
Yeah,
we do.
Matt is going to be joining us in just a moment. I believe you guys have a short clip of him. I'm so impressed with this young man. He goes before our legislature when it's in session in Tallahassee, Florida, and he's a college kid. And so, a lot of us, older folks, I'll call us, are very reticent to go out there and really push for the side of things that need to happen. But here is a prime example. I know Addison's on watching. I mean, she's even younger, but this is what it's going to take. And that's why this demographic of young white males is so important to me. My son happens to be in that demographic, but it's important to me because when I see examples like Matt and like Addison, and Addison has been on the show as well, I think that we need to cultivate folks like that. So I'm very happy to introduce Matt and bring him on and have him share some of his thinking as well today.
So want to show his video first?
Yeah, why don't you show the video?
I'll play the video and I'll bring him in while the video's playing. It's great. About 2 minutes long, but this is, again, just an example of future leadership. They are
quality, the quality that progressives want to foster to fix the mess that the other group is putting us in. And we can do it, but like Liz said, our generations, all right, and the three of us come from slightly different generations. Jeremy and I are a little closer, but we're still technically different. And if white men and white people do not start speaking up and pointing out that racism is not the norm, is not the expected, we're not going to make any progress. And if it's young people doing it, that's even more impactful.
All right, so here's the video. It's about 2 minutes long, and then we'll bring Matt on and have a talk with him.
You're recognized.
My name is Matthew Grocholski, and I am here today as a concerned college-aged Floridian, concerned about how our state government is working. I'm one of the few people that can make public comment today because as soon as the speaker said that you'll be pushing this bill through the committee hearing process today, I drove up all the way from Orlando to be here. When I was in middle school, Trump was elected president. I remember seeing my friends terrified that they might not have a future in the great state of Florida. Now in college, I have friends texting me, worried. I have friends that understand that dreams will be crushed. And dreams will be crushed due to this bill. Dreams of people that I know. Our state government used the smokescreen of finally resisting our governor to push an 87-page bill introduced a few hours ago that spends roughly $500 million. This bill hurts students directly that pay taxes instead of focusing on the issue that we've been begging you to focus on: property insurance and the cost of living. And you did all of this under a bill titled Trump to try to own the libs. Well, I'll tell you, you are not in the seats that you occupy to make legislation just impress one person in power. It's disgusting to see futures in education be memed, all for the sake of deriding. You're supposed to make legislation that works for all of us. This special session is bogus and a slap in the face of Floridians. But that's what the Florida legislative session has been for years. It's another year of me requesting that this body walks in compassion. Nobody should have to do that, especially somebody that is the age of me. You're working to curb the American dream while curbing public comment. Shame on this legislative body. Do the work for once that actually helps young people like me, not hurt them directly time and time again. Thank you for your time.
Ah, I love it.
Go, Matt. It's like drop the microphone.
Right? Let me unmute Matt there. All right. Oh, no, you're just in the camera. All right, there we
Matt,
go. What's
welcome.
up, Matt? Welcome back to the show.
Of course. Thank you all for having me.
I got to ask you one question. One simple question. Should this be the job of people your age, or should we expect adults to be able to take on this mantle?
Yeah, well, it definitely shouldn't be people my age, I feel. It's a very unfortunate thing that, especially in the South, in places such as, Florida, that we really do have to rely so heavily on college age or even high school age students to really speak up and advocate for basic human rights and decency. But unfortunately, we're stuck in a situation where we have to have all hands on deck, all ages on deck, because this is
I agree.
Forced to be a generational movement.
Now, my next question before we get into some other things, because you represent what I am starting to believe is the most important group of electorate in this country. There is a battle going on for the vote of people of your complexion and your age. And where does it stop? Is this a matter of we need to finally recognize that kids, and I apologize to group you in the term kid, but you'll understand where I'm going. Do we finally recognize that kids have a right to speak their mind and they aren't just stupid little nobodies that don't know anything until they magically turn 18? My point in that is the right is often trying to tell us what kids can do and can't do. And their ideas of what kids can and can't do don't really present a good picture for the future of youth in this country. So should we be listening to kids more? Should we be listening to young people more? And is there a value anymore in listening to people of a certain age? Like, I know that's a controversial question, but someone's got to get pushed out of the picture, in my opinion. And who should we be listening to the most?
Yeah, well, I'll say in terms of youth empowerment right now, I feel like there is a national recognition that young people really have, unfortunately, felt the experience of so many other generations. We're commonly labeled the school shooting generation. We're the generation of COVID. We are the generation of isolation. We've seen wars abroad. We've seen a lot of issues happening domestically in the United States. Unfortunately, this is a generation of trauma. That's how I greatly put it. And we're seeing a lot of youth leaders, including myself, but also, yesterday, David Hogg was just elected vice chair of the Democratic National Committee
that's awesome.
at the age of, I believe, 24.
That's
which
unheard
is
of.
Insane.
Yeah.
But
that's a big thing.
That's the cards that we're, having to be dealt right now.
So you're rising to the occasion, and we should be helping you, not pushing you back down, because some people want your vote, but they want you to shut up. The rest of us want your vote, and we also want to hear what you want from this planet that we are going to leave you. And I think that's the difference.
I think we're at the point now where action is required. You have to take a stand. You have to stand on business, as they like to say these days. It's more important than ever now. Especially at a young age, because I know when I was young, I was lost. Like, I went in the military, honestly, because I had nothing better to do. I had no idea what I was doing with my life. I'm like, F it, I'll just join the military. And that didn't work out too well. But, like, for somebody like you, I can appreciate what you do just because you seem so much more focused at a younger age. And you know what's happening. Like, I was completely oblivious until 4 years ago, and I'm 47.
Guess what that is?
Anything about politics.
White male privilege.
Right. Well, I knew nothing about politics, and I avoided it. I really did. But it's nice to see people at a young age like you just take over and really go at these, dipshits in suits that think they know
Well,
everything. And
I'd also argue, though, that unfortunately, my generation is forced to be politically aware
Yup.
on
true.
a daily basis now. We
Engage or die.
open, yeah, we open TikTok, all these other social media apps, and all we see is, what is happening globally and, of course, domestically right now, especially with ICE deportation raids happening all
Yep.
across the country.
Yeah.
They're gonna be
Every
smart
time
about
I open Instagram, people are giving warnings to their community members and friends. These are not typically political people. These are
Right.
people that did not vote about Kamala Harris versus Donald Trump. These are
Yeah.
people that just see injustice happening in their community and they're forced to speak out on it because of social media.
Actually, I want to add something to that, Matt, because I can appreciate the creativity that the young generation has in getting the word out. Because if you guys have, if you're on TikTok and you're anything political, even not political now, you've probably seen the hashtag cute winter boots.
Yes.
That's the signal. ICE is around. That's like not, but the right.
Us old people
sees
could
it-
never think of that.
Right, but I'm saying like all these people on the right are on Twitter going, "Oh my God, they're arming themselves, getting their winter boots ready." Like
Yep.
dipshits are missing the plot entirely.
But that's the
like
whole
they're
point.
so
is they missed
oblivious
the point.
to everything. But the young generation, especially on social media,
Well,
you guys have such a good way of starting trends that matter. And
Well,
I don't think we had that in my generation.
It's almost like there's a reason they want to turn off social media or have it controlled through a filter.
Exactly.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, let's look. I mean, we're talking about how this is a group that is being targeted. But I think we need to understand that that isn't just like our opinion. That isn't just an impression. There's information to back that up. How badly did Kamala Harris lose young men in the election? Men between the ages of 18 and 29 turned away from the Democrats in droves, shattering illusions that Gen Z, a cohort that statistically reads fewer books, comprehends less information, and predominantly gets their news from social media, skews more progressive than previous generations. The key demographic of young men has shifted nearly 30 points to the right since 2020, when they voted for President Joe Biden by a margin of 15%. Now, that 2020 is very important because that was when the push of the manosphere, the right-wing influencers, the proud incel movement, that is when they were courted by right-wing influences and pushed as the voice of the young generation to try and steer young white men to be more misogynistic, more racist, more bigoted, and more right-wing.
We have white men running around this country telling everybody they're a proud incel. And I didn't know what incel meant until like a couple months ago, but it means involuntary celibate.
Yep.
Which means nobody wants to have sex with you.
Well, the irony in that is they identify as that because they believe they are being slighted. They are trying to find a community, which is, again, I think one of Liz's ideas that she wants to push is this need for a community, this void-filling place. And the incel movement is built around there's something inherently perfect about us. Why don't women want us? Well, you only think that because you're told that men enjoy a special status and that everyone else wants to be near you, wants proximity, wants what you offer. And when boys and men get into the real world and realize that you don't just go up to someone and say, "You're mine now," and hit them with a club, that they have free will too, and maybe they're assessing your value as someone. What is it wrong with you? It's not that you're a man. It's obviously something else. So there's a group in this country that wants you to think we're blaming you because you're men, that they don't like you because you're men.
Right.
No, they might not like you because of what you say, who you vote for.
Right.
I mean, and again, there's more proof of it. Major gender gap. Young women plus 20 for Harris, young men plus 11 for Trump. That is not just like close. That is a complete other way. Why are young white men leaving the Democratic Party? And they are. The Democratic Party for a long time was the party of white men in the sense that it was the alternative to the Republican old crusties. The Democrats were like, all right, we're the cool new white guys. And then they were like, well, we'll support other people, but we're never going to put our money where our mouth is. So that's why we've never had anything codified into law. That's why whenever Democrats are in power, they kind of forget to continue messaging, while Republicans are in power now and they're continuing to message about how bad trans are, how bad the Democrats are losing young white men because the Republicans are going, they don't like you. Look who the people they're supporting is. It's not young white men. We'll support young white men.
Right.
Yeah. I think you hit it on the head. We're talking about who or what ran to that filling the void role. And the Democratic Party and those of us that are, not in the Democratic Party, I'm independent, we didn't rush in to fill that role. We didn't realize what was going on with young white males.
Correct. We ignored them.
Yeah.
It's a failure we had.
And so now we can't ignore it. And now there are some key pieces of that, of how we got here. And I think the biggest one, pandemic, that has had such an impact on so many things, but people have undervalued. They're all concerned about, the kids' reading scores. Well, what has happened socially?
The socialization is gone.
The whole, 2 or 3 year period, really, of a change in how we communicate, how we interact with one another. And, there's nothing we can do about it other than recognize that, yes, that was the beginning of kind of the end of, those of us that are on this side. And we didn't listen or see what was going on.
Go. I was just going to say, there's value then in recognizing that, and Matt, I want your opinion on this, the ignoring of a demographic. The Democratic Party is, at least on paper, always trying to address different demographics, LGBTQ, the black vote, the brown vote, the, whatever it is. But the ignoring of the white male vote, we almost have stayed away from it because we know that catering to it often means at the detriment of all the other groups. So what do you think, Matt? Like, is there an avoidance of young white men on the left? And do you think that's an important thing missing from the puzzle?
Yeah, I'll actually hop in with some data points I've seen because I'm actually making right now a video on the core movement, which is a TikTok artistic movement that tried to capture post-2020 sensibilities and socialization. It's really just like a whole bunch of edited together clips of things that go around themes of isolation and other issues. Since 2021, in 2021, research study got published that 15% of young men claim that they have no friends or any close friends at all, which is a 12% increase since 1990. In 2022, a Pew Research study came out that 6 out of 10 young men under the age of 30 are single right now, or have not had romantic relationships in the past. In 2020, we saw this whole journey that embarked online, where everybody was inside. So a lot of my generation watched Twitch streamers, YouTube streamers, all that. I mean, we saw some really big, more progressive people really grow in that time period. But we also saw an emergence of right-wing influencers that really captured young men. And even some of the progressive ones at the time, such as XQC, who's one of the biggest Twitch streamers in history, has moved to the right, incredibly so. I mean, he was on a Twitch stream with Aiden Ross and Donald Trump during the election. And he used to be a progressive, super pro LGBT Twitch streamer. So I think a lot of the issue is that, we allowed and elevated a lot of Twitch streamers and influencers that ended up joining the alt-right pipeline.
So,
and it could be that they were paid off, but also lots of these people were younger white men that got wealthy super fast.
Yep.
Because Twitch streamers are pretty wealthy.
Yep. And where'd
Yeah.
that money come from? Saying whatever it took.
Yeah.
Yep.
And, you know, we're seeing that even continue now and expand onto TikTok. When, you know, TikTok was banned and then brought back in like, 18 hours. We had some of the biggest TikTok influencers thank Donald Trump publicly on their pages.
Yeah.
These are super typically apolitical TikTok influencers. Like Vex Bolts, for example, had the biggest TikTok live in history on the 31st of last year.
What was that name again, Matt? What was that name again?
Vex Bolts. He just became a giant meme on TikTok. And then about 19 days after he had the biggest TikTok live on New Year's Eve, he thanked Donald Trump alongside everybody in his influencer organization.
You know, I think I get it though, because it kind of goes with what you're saying. You take lonely men who aren't getting attention from men or women, like friends or romantically, and then you find and target, because that's what they've done. They targeted these naive young men that have no idea what life is about, and they feel lost in the world, and they're like, hey, why don't you come over here? We'll take care of you. We'll make sure that, you know, I think that makes so much sense, because if somebody's lonely and you that's how people end up in like the KKK or like neo-Nazi groups.
It's amazing
Lonely,
how people take advantage of people.
And they suck them right in. They're targets. Well, these people are marks. They know what they're. This is Russian.
It's funny
propaganda at its finest.
Funny. Matt, you segued us right into, I think, what the next major point is. We had to understand that there was a void, and that there is something that is being self-identified in the young male category: the loneliness, the lack of meaning, the lack of direction. And where Democrats, and I'm going to say progressives, and all of us that are trying to message failed, was in realizing that in stripping them of their negative identity, we did not provide them with something to be proud to identify with moving forward.
Correct.
We didn't replace misogyny with compassion. We didn't replace, you know, superiority with kindness. We just went, you can't be assholes anymore. Okay,
you're absolutely right.
You know,
no direction.
And what happened? We have people like Nick Fuentes. The day, basically, where was this? 11/5. Keep in mind that is the day after the election, right? Your body, my choice forever. That is a major right-wing influencer who has been given press coverage, has been given proximity to the president, has been given a platform. An ex-post from white nationalist and Holocaust denier Nick Fuentes said, "Your body, my choice forever," had been viewed more than 90 million times and reposted more than 35,000 times between Thursday and Friday. That was a few days after the election. ISD recorded a 4,600% increase in mentions of the phrase on X. A number of women on TikTok posted videos saying their comments had been filled with users posting the phrase. Schools have been reporting that kids have been walking around, children, repeating this phrase to girls because their brothers, their daddies, or the influencers they're watching are telling them to say that.
There's also kids running around doing the old Adolf Hitler salute now, thanks to Elon Musk.
Yeah, Elon.
Well, they're just throwing their heart out. So again,
revelation. I'm sorry.
You replace, you put limits on what a group can identify as, and that's usually a bad thing. But when the left has put limits on what toxic masculinity is allowed to be and what we're going to accept as a society, people like Andrew Tate come along. If you don't know Andrew Tate, don't worry about it. I'll tell you right now. Do some Google searches. He is a major right-wing influencer who has nothing but disdain for women, disdain for the LGBTQ community, and envisions a world where he is a superior being to other women. And this is the type of stuff that he is putting out there that young men are identifying with because it empowers them. A man should be a leader, not a follower. He should be the one making the decisions, not the one being told what to do. By extension, if I have responsibility over her, then I must have a degree of authority. That's protector mentality taken to the obscene. Why would you be with a woman who's not a virgin anyway? She's used goods secondhand. So women are supposed to be wrapped up little pieces of treasure for men to have. One of the best things about being a man is being territorial and being able to say, that's mine. Okay, that's just creepy. Achieve something. Man should be a leader, not a follower. He should be the one making the decisions.
Yeah, that's the
not
same one.
Oh, crap.
That's all right. It's worth repeating. But
I didn't
Andrew
realize.
Tate, who has, I've heard the call. He is on audio talking about sexually assaulting a woman and how it makes him turned on. Okay, this is a alleged rapist, alleged sex trafficker, and we have young white men in America looking up to these people, following them on Twitter. Elon Musk is another person.
You know what's really funny? I just made a connection, and then I'll let everyone else go what they were going to say. What we're seeing now in Andrew Tate is very much the anti-rat argument from the 80s and 90s, especially the 90s, where a bunch of white scared people would be like, look at them rap videos showing people with money and cars and women, and they're sending a bad message. No, what they meant was those are black people making music video that my white kid likes. Now you have white guys making videos, flashing the money with the cars and the women, telling them that women should be slaves, and everyone's like, I mean, free speech, man. Free speech.
I know. So
Well, an interesting, I did put out some questions about, what is this draw of Andrew Tate and what's actually going on? And so one astute young person explained to me that he probably says 1,000 things a day, but what we attack is the most salacious piece, and rightfully so. Those comments that you posted are frankly disgusting, right? But he's filling that void with all the other pieces, with you are okay that you are male, and you know what? He's pushing it with saying you're superior because you're male, but he is filling that void of this group of people that don't know if they have a position in society. And that's what it's coming down to. And unfortunately, they've really monopolized this and put it out there like, and these things are happening to you because of the other groups, because of the recognition of LGBTQ plus people, because of immigration. And so they've tied up this nice little package of why these young white males are in the position that they're in. And if we don't look at what their messaging is out to them and why it's working, then we are missing the target here.
Now,
because it's absolutely filling that void, and we need to start filling that void instead.
I agree. Matt, have you seen any efforts on, I don't know where you go to school, but have you seen any efforts on your school like this, where they come in specifically targeting, lonely white guys or?
Yeah, I'll say, I currently go to Rollins College based in Ware Park. And they have, tried to form chapters that are equivalent to Turn Point USA and other organizations. And then, you walk on the UCF campus and you're bombarded by about like 10 to 15 people, praying for you and then trying to put you on this path of conservative ideology. It's kind of crazy. But I'll say you kind of really hit the nail on the head with talking about Andrew Tate. But also another thing about Andrew Tate is that he does fit the void of so-called self-improvement that so many men really want to undergo because of issues stemming from the male loneliness epidemic, which is a whole topic. But
doesn't he sell like some kind of course online? It's like a monthly subscription fee, like how to be a man.
And
like,
to make money and get into
paying for
crypto and stuff like that. And you can say so many things about the male loneliness epidemic, but there definitely is a void in men right now where they feel like they're lonely, and that could be for friendships, as I said previously. Not that many men actually really think that they even have any friends now. Or you could say that about romantic relationships where there is a disproportionate amount of men that are single compared to women.
It's interesting that the lack of friendships and the loneliness, in my mind, are a direct result because of the definition that people have put traditionally on male relationships. Men don't talk about their feelings. They don't just hang out to have tea. They don't call each other to say hi to each other. They only meet when there is something to achieve, something to do, or to eat. So, but yet women have known for a long time that you could have relationships. Maybe you don't get to speak every day, but when you do, that there's something more deep than just, hey man, did you download that new patch this weekend? Like, so we were trying to explain that men can have these meaningful relationships too. You could embrace your emotions and just miss your friends and want to get dinner one day. You could do that. But then that all stopped, and the right wing came in and went, no, don't do that.
Yeah, I'm Gen X, and not because my father was an amazing man. I mean, honestly, like all the shit I have in the background, except for the black flag, that's mine. All that stuff is his. But he taught. I was taught. I grew up in the Army. My dad was in the Army, bro. I grew up like physical injuries you treat, internal stuff you just kind of deal with. That's how I grew up. That's why I'm such a basket case now. But I mean, seriously, I wish now I feel like I'm as emotionally mature as I've ever been because of the fact that I realize you have emotions specifically to express them. You're not sorry. You're not supposed to keep that shit inside, man. That's what causes depression and anger and the toxic masculinity and people going, you know what I mean?
Well, and that's perfect because now
can't be like that.
When we have a generation, the COVID generation, the isolation generation, the school shooting generation, people who have been stripped of those social close physical proximity for a million reasons, people that are afraid to get into close proximity because they don't know who's going to shoot them tomorrow. Okay, but then we don't give them that out to say, okay, you're scared, tell a bunch of people, that will bring you together. It's the complete opposite. Keep it in. Don't feel that way. If you feel that way, that's doubt, and men don't doubt.
And the group that I spoke with, they definitely doubled down on what you're saying, that isolationism makes them, yes, recognize that they can't express feelings and emotions, which, you know, there is a difference with how women want to express things and men want to express things, but it's been devalued that men express themselves, right?
At all.
And so they're isolating themselves. And someone in the comments just wrote about the gaming industry. That's why gaming is so huge. That is the outlet. That is the outlet that has filled that void as well, right? They can be empowered and sitting in front of their screen and whatever kind of, things they use, tools they use, right? They are the master of that kingdom. And it's filling that void that we need to recognize is there. So then it unfolds to, yes, it's creating school shooters. These are all interlacing pieces. Of course. And, it's time that we recognize that this is a group that we can't just toss away and say, oh, well, if we can get all the females to, vote in the right direction, then we'll be fine.
No,
that's been proven. That's not going to work.
See, the thing I don't like about the right is they'll recruit somebody who is emotionally immature and has never seen the world, and then they'll break them.
Yeah.
They'll fill their heads with so much hate and so much propaganda. That's why these school shootings are happening. People are breaking emotionally. Like everybody has a breaking point. And when you feel like, and I hate sharing stuff like this, but when you want to end your life and you feel like there's no hope left,
there's always someone that's willing to give you hope. It's what's behind that hope? What's behind that hand?
Right. You don't care if you're in a period of complete desperation and somebody reaches their hand out to help
take
you,
it.
You're
Doesn't
gonna
matter.
Take that hand. Yeah. You know what I mean? Even if it's
true.
Evil. It's just human nature. It's survival. You know what I mean?
I think that's the whole point of what has become
we're not reaching our hands
the manosphere. That's what people are calling it now, Liz. And you're right. There is this huge online presence where men can go, either the gaming industry, Reddit, all these different areas, 4chan, 8chan, whatever, however many chans you want.
I forgot about Reddit.
And online misogyny is basically a place that built the manosphere because it doesn't just give men a fake sense of support. It gives them a target.
Yeah.
So extremist digital sexism with dangerous real-world consequences. What motivates the manosphere? Sexist ideas and organized male bigotry are nothing new. The fight for gender equity has faced backlash from men's rights activists for decades. They often draw on very real concerns. Changes in the global economy have reduced the security and availability of many traditionally, quote, manly jobs. Gains in gender equality and the, that's a hard one, I'm sorry, 2S LGBTQIA plus rights are challenging and changing traditional ideas about gender roles. Some men find these shifts unsettling. They are dealing with new social expectations. They are being asked to share power and privilege for the first time. That's important.
Yeah.
Men have high and rising rates of mental health problems, including loneliness, depression, and suicide. These are all complex issues. They result from decades of political, economic, and technological change, but the manosphere blames them all on women because it's been a coordinated effort to target a group that is suffering. Okay, if you want to pretend that white males aren't suffering, then you are too far to the left because you're not looking at what's really happening and you're ignoring very real consequences. We're not saying that everyone on the left should drop everything, stop focusing on DEI, stop focusing on equality and everyone else and just cater to men. What we're saying is, if we're going to treat everyone equally, recognize what is happening to young men because it's directly affecting all of us. It's becoming a political weapon, and it worked.
Hey,
Yeah.
Mike,
Yeah, well-
I forgot about this real quick, you guys. On after Donald Trump was elected and the whole "Your Body, My Choice" thing, some people started a Reddit feed, and this is even hard for me to say because I can't believe people like this exist. In the entire feed, and I think there was like 50,000 people in it. If I'm trying to find the information on it, and the entire feed was about how they would assault women.
Yep.
How, where, who, when. Like, these people are going into graphic detail on what they wanted to do forcibly to women. And that's
about an
the
echo
environment
chamber.
right. That's the environment that this shit here creates.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You have a bunch of stupid
It's
Matt, you look like you have something to say.
It's normalizing very abnormal behavior and
Yes.
thinking. And unfortunately, you know, the top leadership in our country has been the key turning point in normalizing that which is wrong.
Just one more thing before I want Matt to say what he thinks about all of this. To your point, Liz, I know we laugh now. Fox is, I don't know who watches it anymore, but this is coming from our corporate media right here. Fox News host slammed for questioning whether husbands should help wives with this common errand. What? He actually said, Jesse Waters, who is a pipsqueak of a human, what kind of husband goes grocery shopping with his wife? I don't know. An adult who,
Maybe
understands that chores are everyone's.
adult.
A hungry adult, someone who likes to spend time with their wife, which is I know a lot of Republicans don't. Like,
No.
come on. What are
They
we
like to
pretending
spend
men
time on
are?
Grindr.
This is more of
And
the
see,
men are one.
that's
it.
instilling that fear and rejection of changes in society because it's bad for you. It's bad for you. You won't be a man if you go grocery shopping.
Yeah.
So it's
All right,
that they've really monopolized on.
Jesse Waters is also the same guy that made fun of Joe Biden for drinking out of a straw. He said it's not manly to drink. Like, this is so toxic. All right, but real quick, Matt, before you go ahead, I want to get your opinion on someone that I think you mentioned before, and that's Charlie Kirk, who surprisingly enough is married and has children. I'm actually surprised anybody would want to reproduce with this degenerate.
Okay, Jeremy.
Someone deemed that valuable.
No, I mean, seriously, this guy's just, he's a disgusting human being. But let me play his video clip real quick. And this was when Charlie Kirk was talking about, this is the stuff they say about birth control on women.
A lot of them are on birth control too, and birth control like really screws up female brains, by the way. Every single one of you need to make sure that your loved ones are not on birth control. It increases depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation. Birth control is the #1 most prescribed medication for young ladies under the age of 25. They will give young ladies birth control for pimples, for acne, to control their moods, their period. It is awful, it's terrible, and it creates very angry and bitter young ladies and young women. That bitterness then manifests into a political party that is the bitter party. I mean, the Democrat Party is all about bring us your bitterness and, we'll give you free stuff. It's like we'll trade you, bitterness for stuff, essentially. That's like the Democrat Party.
As stupid as it sounds, he's, like Liz said, he's saying, well, they're bitter. you don't want to be like them. You want to
Yeah.
be more like us.
Yeah.
So Matt, like the whole Charlie Kirk, Ben Shapiro, the whole influencer. I don't even want to call them influencers because they're bad. Like back in my day, we had bad influences and good influences. Now they're just
Influencers.
Do you think, Matt, this is going to be more of a trend because of Donald Trump getting elected? Or do you think people will start to see through the bullshit and eventually get it that this is not the way to live your life?
Yeah, I'll say that. I think this type of messaging and ideas where the right is attacking things such as abortion and reproductive care, it's actually kind of where they do shoot themselves in the foot. Because young men, not be that guy, but we live in an economy where young men really cannot have children right now. That is,
Right.
I'm going
I
to
agree
delve
with that.
into economics, in a second, but it is scary to so many young men to have a child. So attacks on reproductive care obviously just have not been approved of in the whole young generation. There's some amazing organizations such as Men for Choice that have tried to uplift and empower typically apathetic men to become reproductive justice fighters and advocates. There have been interviews throughout the whole election season on college campuses asking men about things such as birth control, reproductive care, where men clearly, even if they seem super right-winged on other issues, really do not cater towards attacks on reproductive care. I think that we'll see kind of an explosion of right-winged, just terrible ideology, of course, in these influencers. But some ideas just are not common amongst actual younger men.
Are
And
young men able to
that's one of them.
discern between, like, if you have an influencer, I apologize for interrupting, but if I don't say this, I'll forget. Are young people still following these influencers that peddle this extreme stuff they don't agree with because they agree with some of the things? Or are they like, there's something wrong here. You're obviously a Looney Tune. I'm going to get rid of you altogether. Like, are they able to discern when someone is letting like their ass show a little more and when they're letting them on to what they're really trying to get them to do? Or is it like, I'll ignore that piece, but I like what they said here?
I think that there is a case to be said that it's an influencer by influencer base cases. There's this far right, I guess now Twitter video user named Sneeko, who used to work for Mr. Beast.
Yeah, I know who Sneeko is. I follow a lot of influencers.
Yeah, he's a little crazy. And he's very much into the Andrew Tate thought process of male empowerment over women, those terrible, just stupid ideologies. But the thing about Sneeko is that even some people on the political right started this meme, I guess, on TikTok that was, I miss the old Sneeko, when Sneeko would just talk about self-improvement strategies and stuff like that, and not like Antifa and random
If I'm
stuff.
not mistaken, Sneeko originally was very progressive, but he is a good example of somebody that will jump on board with basically any opinion, because he was very pro LGBTQ, and then I forget the name of the guy. It's some video he watched, and then he was anti-LGBTQ. You know what I mean? And then first he wasn't racist, and then he was racist because he watched somebody. And then he started acting like Andrew Tate because he watched Andrew Tate videos. He's like, oh, I want to be like him. So yeah, I get the old Sneeko thing.
So Matt,
it wasn't like that always.
Is it fair to say, and I'm trying to like work my way through all this, that there's almost an organic nature to who is successful in the influencer verse, I'll say, specifically regarding the male targeting, that there's almost a policing where if they go a little too far, it seems like people are calling them out. And maybe because don't forget, some of these are at a point now where they could be backed financially, they could be backed by other motives that are not their own, that if they're going to keep being pushed and they're going to do what they're being, quote, allegedly paid for, Well, at some point that pushback, and they're not going to change their ways. That's just going to hurt them. And then maybe they won't have the influence they did anymore. I guess my point I'm trying to make is if there is some spark of critical reasoning in this targeted audience, then there is hope for a progressive voice in the manosphere, if you will, to try and give them a realistic alternative and not default onto the misogyny.
I will add something to this. The right wing has put billions, with a B, billions of dollars into grooming white men over years, pretty much since Donald Trump ran for office. It's been a Russia propaganda campaign the entire time. Now, there are people that are being paid, specifically, like Tim Pool, allegedly for legal reasons or whatever, that are being paid, specifically targeted and paid very well to push Russian talking points. They feed them the talking points. They push them out into the world. And then you got people like Joe Rogan and other comedians. What's his name? What's the country boy's name?
Theo Vaughn.
Theo Vaughn, who then unwittingly...
They run with it.
Which I have a problem with Theo Vaughn because he's actually extremely intelligent. He just pretends he's an idiot, which is the case with a lot of these comedians. But then you have people like Joe Rogan out there, you know, being on the side of Russia versus the Russia-Ukraine war.
To be fair, Joe Rogan is an idiot.
He's got one of the biggest podcast audiences in history. You know what I mean? So it's the propaganda works if you could infect the environment with it. If you throw out a talking point, it just bounces off the wall and nobody spreads it. It's dead. It's nothing happening. But Russia somehow and Vladimir Putin's KGB friends found a way to infect our entire nation through social media, through right-wing media, and yes, through Donald Trump, who is a Russian asset and has been since 1987. I don't know why we're not talking about that more, but they have done it well. They've spent billions of dollars. They took their time. They played the long game, and they won.
If the right is anything, it's well-funded and very patient. And we're seeing now that they waited long enough to see the advantage of social media. And yet again, the Democrats did not take any advantage that was before them. And they didn't even care. And they went, we'll just do it the same old way we always did it.
They did.
And the right was like, we're going to get in their homes. We're going to get on their kids' iPads. And we are going to infect them with our belief.
Yeah. Well, a couple of things on influencers, right? There is a pretty small, I think, but growing pushback on these folks that just have these platforms where they just lie and, you know, throw out pure propaganda. There is a young man named Luke Beasley. Is amazing.
Oh, I love Luke Beasley.
I don't know how he stands his ground the way that he does, but
he is
if you're listening,
into MAGA crowds.
Yeah. I mean, you know,
another one is Adam Mockler.
So this morning, I just watched the Tim Pool broadcast because I really wasn't familiar with him. Don't like him.
Yeah.
News flash, right?
Yeah, well.
But I just watched him for the first time, and Luke was his guest.
And really?
Yeah. And it was very well done. And Luke really just remained calm. Tim went off on him. So I thought, so who is this Tim Pool? So I looked up. He's worth about $5 million. So this is a millionaire that, you know, is dressed like a young guy, and he knows how to reach out.
You know, it's funny you say that. Brian Tyler Cohen recently, he was known for wearing a suit, and he was like, I'm going to stop wearing a suit. I'm putting words in his mouth, but he kind of explained it this way, is I'm not wearing a suit anymore because who is that reflective of? No one's looking. I'm not trying to impress anyone that needs to see what a suit looks like to be, this guy knows what he's talking about. We have to meet people where they are.
Why do you think we look like we do?
That's why I love you guys, though, because you look like you should be. And I don't mean this in a
I
negative
know.
way.
No, I get
but
it.
you look like you should be backwoods Kentucky, chewing on your tobacco and with your rifles ready to go. Right.
Well, that's why I made my Instagram handle Progressive Beard.
You know,
I'm ironic for that.
Right. And I know that's me stereotyping, right? But I mean, that's what we feel like we're fighting against. And here's these two guys that, you know, we connected somehow along the path. And it's like, they're right up my alley with, you know, their way of thinking and their way of pushback. So I love
We
these
have
two
more in
guys.
common. We have more in, we all,
Yes.
there's a
Yeah.
thread running between all generations, all genders, all races. I hate that word, all religions. And the right's job to continue its own existence is to keep us hating each other.
Correct.
And that
Yes.
includes young white men. We now know
Correct.
it. Let's stop pretending that they aren't a targeted minority, because they are. The target minority is young white men. That's
But
who
what they're
going
not comprehending is that young white males are being targeted, but it's not by the changes in society. Young white males are not in danger of not existing anymore.
Of course.
Right.
Yeah, no one's
And-
But they
legislating our
are
lives
being
out of existence.
targeted, right? They are being targeted to play along with some of these philosophies of, you know, unacceptance or non-acceptance of some other folks within our, you know, our
you know,
existence.
That
So
comment.
I'll
I did
say-
want to
Matt's
speak
got
about Charlie Kirk too. That was a perfect little clip that you showed. Charlie Kirk is very successful. I think somebody in
Oh,
the
yeah.
comments put down, you know, what his net worth is or whatever.
Yeah, he's,
But if you listened closely to what he said in that little clip, he's not totally wrong.
no.
There is a thread of information that these influencers use and they incorporate in, and it makes people think that they are reasonable, right? So it's all strategic on their part.
Of course it is.
So his whole thing, right, was about birth control. He's right about some of the situations and
Yes.
things of concern with birth control, but he's saying it as a reason to then not allow women
Yes.
to, you know, have their access
Yeah.
to it,
Right.
which isn't, it's like he's got the
Reasonable.
right ammo, but he's shooting it at the wrong target.
Yeah, he's
Right.
using the right data to
Yes.
interpret the wrong course of action.
Yes.
But
Yes.
Matt's looked like he's been itching to say something, so I want to give him a
Yeah,
chance.
no, you know, I'll say that, you know, previously we have seen eras of social media where the right wing did kind of fully take over YouTube, for example. I remember back in
The Tea Party.
2016, there was a wave of YouTubers called commentary YouTubers, which would literally just be a YouTuber talking about a video
Yeah, like
while
Upa
playing
Go.
like CSGO. And all that content was built on harassment and bullying people, mostly marginalized people, mostly the LGBT community, you know, the disabled community. And that era died because of right-winged infighting in that circle. They never clearly defined themselves as supporting Trump, for example. They never fully admitted that they support the Republican Party, but they were harassing the exact type of people that the Republican Party does harass. But the thing is, that era died because of right-winged infighting. This era, however, though, is completely different because we are not seeing that level really happen. Of course, some influencers, you know, fight each other. Like Sneeko is continuously fighting people about Palestine and Israel and those types of issues because he is the opposite of many people like Charlie Kirk on that type of issue. But we're not really seeing the level of infighting and actual harassment smears that happened previously in that era of commentary YouTubers that really ended that. We're seeing, unfortunately, a lot of people that previously did actually back more progressive ideas. And, you know, we look at people such as, you know, Theo Vaughn that had Bernie Sanders on his podcast during the 2024 election, actually. And he basically called Bernie a folk hero. And, you know, that similarly happened with Joe Rogan back in the 2020 election. And there was a lot of issues with that. But, you know, the problem is that we saw that people such as Bernie Sanders could actually navigate the weird, really weird right-wing men space. And
that's
that
true.
could be for a lot of reasons. But he still was able to actually get this demographic to agree with
You're
him
right.
ideologically. And of course, I saw a comment come in about how they moved to Rumble. And yeah, they're using Rumble and some other terrible apps that are just
Don
echo
Jr.'s on Rumble.
But the problem is that the left right now and progressives as a whole are seeding the main applications that my generation uses.
Yes. Well,
Such
Twitter's
as
gone.
TikTok, even.
Yeah, TikTok.
Twitter's gone. Twitch has been dominated recently, besides Hassan Piker, by right-wing people. If you look at
Yeah.
Spotify podcasts, pretty much every top Spotify podcast is a right-wing podcast. And we're seeing the tools that are actually popular amongst people.
Yeah.
Not Rumble. Who cares about Rumble? Who cares about these
Who's getting the
other
most
tools that
traction,
the
the
right
most
uses?
views?
But the right is also utilizing the right is basically using their own echo chambers, such as Rumble, and also the main popular tools. And we're sitting here wanting to move to places such as Blue Sky. And I'm not a Blue Sky hater.
I
Blue
gotcha.
Sky's just not popular among
No,
So don't
sucks.
seed the ground.
It
No
sucks.
young person uses Blue
It's
Sky.
basic as hell. It's like
Yeah.
old Twitter. You know what I mean? You can't even go live.
It's been the migration for a few weeks now, and they've done nothing to make it any better than it was the
There
day.
is such an opportunity. Mark Cuban, where are
Go
you
buy
at,
it.
buddy?
Yeah, go buy it.
Dude, you got all the money in the world. Let's start a progressive social media app where these right-wing dipshits can't get into it.
Yeah.
Jesus, why can't we have something like this? This is what I
Can't we
hate.
have a billionaire?
That's what I hate, though. Like, right-wing has all the money. They have all the influencers. They have all the power. While we sit here with our thumbs up our asses, waiting for our leaders to do something. Yeah,
Jeremy, I'm gonna disagree a little bit on that. I think the one thing that the right wing has above us is strategy.
You're right.
There is just as much money. There's just as much influence, but we don't have the strategy and the plans to move forward. So what do we do? In our last few minutes, let's talk about what we should do moving forward.
Well, look, I know there's. I want to hear Matt's mostly on this, but I'm just going to put in that I think I'll go in general terms. Obviously, we need to organize differently. It's not just about finding the same message and unifying the message. It's about getting that message out to the right people. It's about making sure that the people we're looking to bring into the fold understand that they are just as important, that we need them. You know, the white young males are looking for a sense of value. Well, we need you. We need you to see how you can help everyone and how you can be beneficial by just putting your support with everyone else and not thinking about just yourself. I think the big thing we have to do is learn how to get the information out, how to get people to understand how they can support their local communities, their school boards, get involved in politics. That's what I think we have to do because that's what they've been doing.
And if you see a white person, because I've been called a race traitor because of this shit. If you see a white person speaking out against racism, let them cook. That's a Vex Bolts thing.
No, but obviously we have to be vocal in
seriously,
public spaces.
You got to understand, okay? That's the whole thing with white privilege. Like, Mike and I understand racism because we chose to understand it. We chose to study it. We have a passion for it, and we want to help. We cannot, because I've been told that all white people are racist, and you can't have an opinion on this. That's not true. That is not true. We have to be, you know what I mean? We just have to be better people. It's pretty much simple as that. Hate is not the way. Hate is going to destroy
Matt,
our
how do we
entire
fix
society.
this? From a young perspective, what do we need to do? We're asking you for help.
Well, it's a lot. So I basically started out this whole thing of, the previous right-wing attempt to take over of YouTube fell flat because of infighting. And now we're at this time period where so many men feel like they're lonely, that they don't have friends, romantic partnerships. Our economic state for my generation is really shit. We're at a time period where we're constantly working or in school. The time that we do have, we end up watching things such as Twitch streamers or playing games with our. And I think the thing that really needs to happen, unfortunately, is probably to me not how I would go around this back in 2020. I was admittedly a Bernie guy, but I was hurt by his decision to go on Joe Rogan. But ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, that was probably the best decision.
Yeah.
What we have to really do now is unfortunately put our hands and try to bring some people in that we really don't like. And the reason why people such as Hassan Piker, uh, Dean on TikTok, the debate guy, and some other, more progressive left winged people are really making the rounds in the news and also just in viewership.
Yep.
Is because they are actually going directly to the source of this right-wing takeover of social media, these really terrible people. But, like how I previously mentioned, Theo Vaughn calls Bernie Sanders, who is a Democratic socialist, a folk hero, while also having Donald Trump on his podcast. The same thing goes for people such as Joe Rogan. There's a weird thing where I think that men fully understand, as well as women, of course, but men specifically in the younger demographics feel like they're super alone. And part of that is definitely spurred on because of the current economic state that we're in, unfortunately.
Well, it's funny you say that. The other day I saw a report, and it moves around a lot. It wasn't just a one-off report. It's the truth. There is no state in the United States where you can rent an apartment on one income.
Yeah.
Dude, when I was Matt's age, well, when I got out of the military, I was making like 40 grand a year. I had my own apartment, car payment.
But meanwhile,
went out on the weekends with my boys and all that.
The right wants you to say you have to succeed. You have to have these things, but the economic environment that they are fostering prevents that. So maybe to your point, and Liz, you have always said we cannot abandon spaces. Maybe we need to reintroduce ourselves into those right-wing spaces.
Right.
Yeah.
Because to what I've learned today in this hour is that the young men are more searching than knowing.
Yeah.
And if they are given more options, they may have a chance to reach out to a different hand. And we have to make sure that's the progressive hand.
We need to go back to lots of these spaces that are inhibited by, people that are utilizing fear and feelings of loneliness to their advantage, and utilize the Democratic Party and just progressive ideals of economic opportunity and prosperity, but use it in ways that actually make sense to voters. You can't say something such as just economic opportunity and have these people understand it. You need to mention that the federal minimum wage is super small and has been at that rate for years now,
decades,
and that the Democratic Party and progressives want to update that and make it a $15 wage, which isn't even a living wage for most of
but it's
America
more than what it is.
No.
But that progressives do care about labor unions, that they do care about you actually being able to afford having a kid or anything like that. So we're at this really big crossroads, unfortunately, where the right has been able to itemize themselves in these spaces as the party of crypto, for example, Bitcoin, of these weird self-improvement classes that actually just take money away from you. But maybe there is a chance that you learn how to invest properly into like penny stocks, for example.
Exactly.
But just that basic 1% chance of success to so many men is attractive. And even if they fail, it's not Andrew Tate's fault. It's my fault because I invested in this meme coin.
I must have did something wrong, right?
So we have to really prepare our image in these spaces, and really showcase that the Republican Party is the party of economic disopportunity, same as just conservative
Well, I
ideology.
think everyone's going to see that real quick in the next few weeks.
I
I
feel
think-
like. Go ahead,
I was
Liz,
just
go
going to say, Matt, I think you hit on a really, really important point, that the view is that the Democratic Party cares. I don't think anyone doubts that. I think that all of their messaging, their convention, before the presidential election,
Mhm.
I think caring was put on the front burner, and it showed, and it made us feel great.
Mhm.
But what's missing is, how do we actually implement the improvements that the
Right.
caring is prompting, right?
We got to put our money where our mouth
I
is.
care that young white males are not financially, feeling good for their trajectory. So what does that translate into, that action piece? So I would therefore then support, as you said, maybe some changes to the minimum wage, maybe looking at requirements for investments, first-time homeowners, things of that nature.
Oh,
The real
things Kamala
specific
Harris promised?
actions. She promised it, but you know what? There was no evidence that it was being
Of
delivered
course, of
from
course.
the Democratic Party.
And
And it made us feel good. What she said made us feel good.
So we have to stop making the people who are actually on the correct moral side of things, we have to stop making ourselves proud that we're on the right side and actually do something about it.
I
We
think-
know we're on
I
the
think
right
you're
side.
right, Mike.
I'm
Yep.
going to
We know we
disagree.
are.
I'm going to disagree with you guys. I don't think we do need to inject ourselves into the right wing sphere. I think they can go shove their heads up their asses for all I care. I think we need to honestly focus on the people that are not political, that did not vote. Okay, we cannot blame them. I say this a lot. We can't blame them for the situation we're in because they didn't vote. It's not their fault. They don't know anything about politics. Donald Trump got elected because they got a lot of people that don't know shit about politics to vote. That's exactly what happened. So I think, honestly, a lot of these young, naive men are eventually, especially after this whole Nazi thing, are going to be like, that's not what I wanted. That's not what I signed up for. And they're going to quietly come back. But I think we're going to be stuck with people like MAGA for the rest of our days. But I think the way we win in the future, and Donald Trump is actually doing it for us. I mean, stopping federal funding, boom, you woke a lot of people up that had nothing to do with politics. Like, why is Donald Trump messing with my money? So Donald Trump, and honestly, Donald Trump is the reason I got into politics. I got into politics right after Jan 6th. That is when I started becoming, more of an activist and speaking my mind and being political.
Well,
and
what's
stuff like
happening now is going to be more visible and affect people more personally and more directly and more
we
dangerously.
have to be, I think, an environment for those people to come to. Like, guys, what the hell is going on?
Maybe
right
there's
now?
a
We
mix,
need
and
be
we
the
all have
ones
to play to
explain
our
it.
strengths.
Right,
How
'cause
about
we don't
that?
want them to going to the Trump side and being like, Trump's got everything under control. Don't worry, everything's sunshine and rainbows, and he's gonna make your life
but you know what, though,
better.
Jeremy? I agree in the sense that maybe we need to focus very much on what we can bring to the fight. So you and I are probably not meant to, as olive branch extenders, our sarcasm and rage are probably not there.
No,
But
we will not
I
play
am
well.
more than willing to explain to someone that might not have preconceived notions about too
Yes.
many things and be like, look at these facts, look at both sides. That's where our strength is. There are people whose strength is to somehow bite the bullet and deal with people who are already on the different side.
If you
So I
got
think
a
we
guy
all have to
walking
fight
around
different battles.
Right, if you got a guy walking around in a real men wear diapers T-shirt, he's gone. Forget it.
Yeah, I'm not gonna bother with it.
Don't try to explain nothing to that guy.
Len, Jeremy, just to clarify, talking about going into spaces, what you're doing on this podcast is actually going into spaces.
True.
You're not
True.
a closed podcast.
Fair.
So those
Fair.
that
Never think of
have
it like
these,
that.
these very, very extended views, I guess, they can watch too. And they might pick up on one little piece of something that was said today.
Fair enough.
Maybe they're Matt's age and they're like, geez, I guess I better pay attention to what's going on. You know what I mean? So it's not a, go on the Trump follower Facebook pages and comment back and forth, because that is the guy in the diapers.
But you know what? This goes back. It goes exactly to what you said about strategy. We need to have these conversations, but in Zoom calls, in larger forums, we need to figure out what these things look like, what these battles look like, what our
Mhm.
strategies are, who's good at what. You handle the infantry, you handle the cavalry, but we got to find a bigger plan, and it can't all be working alone for the same goal. We
Yeah.
need more coordination.
Well, and I think that, why I was so strongly pushing for this particular podcast and this topic, it's not just that, I'm directly impacted because I have a son in that grouping, but I think that we need to not throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to
Mhm.
speak.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it seems awful that these young white males, are leaning towards Nazism and leaning towards, being just so extremist in their views. But I'm not willing to throw them out without at least trying. And the first piece in doing so is recognizing, how did we get here? And we've discussed today how we got here. These people that we think are less than, what should be listened to, those are the folks that are being listened to because they use strategy, and they are
No,
pushing
you're right.
in. They are pushing into the void. We need to push into that void too. And it's, our show today was geared about, young white males, but it's a whole lot of different demographics that
Oh, yeah.
we need to get more strategic about. The elderly, we need to get more strategic. We need to have as powerful messaging as, these immigrants are going to turn your town upside down and threaten
They're
your
gonna
very
eat your
life.
dogs.
Going to eat your dogs. That's pretty powerful.
How did
And
that not
folks
lose
bought
him?
into that. So it is time for us to figure out what's going on. And I think today's show really helps us to, move in that direction. Matt's expertise is amazing. And I mean, he is boots on the ground doing the work. He's not just some kid that I found on the internet somewhere.
No. Liz, you seem to only bring to us these amazing kids that are actually
they're doing the
what
work.
we need them to do for all of us.
And, back to our original conversation, is it their obligation to do this? No, but they must do this.
It's our
And
obligation to
older
provide them
folks,
with a better world, but we're not doing
absolutely.
that.
And
We're
the
not doing it.
opportunities to have, that they need in order to spread their messaging. And their message really is, hold on, wait a minute.
All right.
I count too. And although we, say we're trying to be very inclusive in everything that we do, right now our government is not. And so all of us, even though you're not a young white male like Matt, or even like you two guys, you're not so young anymore, guys, sorry.
Youngish.
But even though you're not in that demographic, we have to find out why what we think is this bad side of what's going on, particularly in our government, why that works to pull in people. And then we have to offer the alternative to that. And the alternative can't be to try and make them feel good, because we've missed that opportunity.
Yeah, it's over.
This has developed within the young white male group that looking for acknowledgement. I think somebody wrote in the comments about acknowledgement too. That's the term that my son and his group used over and over and over again. We need to be acknowledged. So we don't want to be the people that say, oh yeah, you really screwed up America by voting the wrong way. We need to be the people that, just like today's focus was, why did this happen? Why did it happen? Because that is really what strategy comes out of.
Agreed.
So,
Matt, any final thoughts?
Yeah, final thoughts before we take off here?
Yeah. I'll just say that I do think that this is obviously a serious issue that I think is also just going to further expand itself into other demographics than just white men. We're actually actively seeing that with black men as well, unfortunately. The social media personalities are really hitting men where it hurts in terms of just converting them to more conservative ideologies. Right before the DNC chair election, I actually met Ben Wickler, who was the second place contestant, and he agreed that this is one of the biggest issues that unfortunately is happening. That the Democratic Party and just progressives and liberals are kind of losing a lot of ground in certain demographics, and that's an unfortunate reality that we're facing every day. We had this assumption that young people were just going to save
We did.
American democracy.
We did. We actually said that.
Yeah, and
We have to give them the tools to do so.
wrong.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we do have a lot of amazing activists and organizers across the country that are younger, that are in this type of work to try and make a difference because they firsthand saw so many experiences and felt those experiences to where they had to get involved in our democracy. But there's also a lot of people that are just watching YouTube videos, Twitch streams, TikToks, and they're becoming fueled by their own experiences into a path of feeling alone, of feeling like, this economy just doesn't work for us. And we all agree this economy does not work for young people at all. It clearly doesn't. But unfortunately, they're going down the worst path. There's 2 dirt roads, that meme where the guy is like in the middle and there's 2 dirt roads. One's this like super dark castle and one's like a sunny village. They're going down the dark castle route. And that is now happening to a lot of demographics across the male spectrum. And that's happening with Hispanic men, that's happening with Black men, happening with white men. And the Democratic Party and liberals saw that white men were the first to go on that slate, and it's going to continue happening. If we do not make the investments, do not have the conversations, and try to open up ways to prevent them from entering that dark castle route. So I think this is just a super important type of discussion.
It's a lot of stuff that I'm thinking about now. Ideas for shows, ideas for outreach, stuff that we want to focus on. I think, just like you said, we need to broaden the conversation to include men and what, unfortunately, they seem to feel left out about with the rest of progress that we're trying to make. And what is lacking in their lives, what is lacking in messaging that they're drawing in and also being projected onto them. I think it's going to be a lot of work. And I don't know the amount of time we have. I know that there are a lot of people putting in the effort, but
I mean,
we have no choice. We got a message.
This all really started in 2016 when we first saw the right take over YouTube. And then it accelerated and propelled to undeniable rates in 2020. And we saw firsthand how the acceleration and growth really impacted people in 2024. And we're going to continue if we just act like it's not there.
Matt, with your permission, I would love to take that idea of the young man at the fork in the road. I think that's a really good visual representation.
T-shirt.
Our graphics team can look at that. And I think it's important to note that we need to be the ones explaining that, it may seem like they wouldn't be included in that sunny little village, but we know for certain that that path that would lead them to the castle means they would be under the fiefdom of the castle. They would, live at whatever the king says, and it's not the right path. So we need to really enlighten the other path and acknowledge and pull them in more and expose the other path.
100%.
I think that's a good place to end the show. So men, white men, do better, please. The way you're going,
I'll say the rest of society do better to acknowledge those white men.
Fair enough.
Again, if they speak against racism, let them speak against racism. If they show their emotions, don't make them feel bad for showing their emotions.
Show
we have
your
to
own.
change the way we have to we honestly have to change the way we treat men too. The whole couple dynamic right now is completely messed up. I'm sorry.
It really is. It really is. Nobody seems to know their place in society, and that's a scary tipping point.
Because we're breaking down these norms that excluded so many people, and we are not necessarily providing the alternative. And I think that's what we have to start doing: is explain. Don't let people make a logical leap, because clearly not because of intelligence, but because of information and other influence, they could not make that leap. We now have to help people make the leap to show why our alternative is the better path.
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah. You know, I'll leave with one last statement. As a kindergarten teacher for all those years, every problem in my classroom was solved when I simply asked one question: why?
Yep. Ask
And I
why
would
5
tell my
times.
students, go ask why.
Yep.
Right.
All of these interactions, if they simply said, why did you do that? Why do you feel that way? Then all of a sudden you have a conversation instead of a two-sided thing.
Yep.
So go ask why is, I guess I'll have to have it on my tombstone.
That's very good. All right, so thanks for watching, everybody. Man, we went over almost
Thank
a
you,
half an hour
Matt,
today.
too.
That
Oh,
went
wow,
quick.
awesome. Yeah, thank you,
Jesus.
Matt.
Yeah.
Thanks again. Yeah, Matt, thank you again for coming back on the show.
Yeah.
You're welcome here anytime. Any
Anytime.
topics you want to talk about, just shoot one of us a text and we'll get you back on the
And
podcast.
sometimes we even talk
Wonderful.
about good news if you have any of that. We'll be
Yeah, or if you just
more
want to
than
make
happy.
fun of Donald Trump and all these Elon Musk and all those guys,
Yeah,
you're
right.
more than welcome to do that. We love
That'll be
doing
on
that
our
the show.
Tuesday evening, more
Yes.
wordy shows.
I have something special lined up for Tuesday. A little more proof that what Elon did and said was a salute to Nazism.
Ooh.
We'll get to that.
Right.
Heavy duty.
Yeah,
I
I
just have
figured
to
something
say
out.
publicly too, I am so proud of Matt. I don't know him personally. We've never even shaken hands, right? But I followed his work and, you know, I'm proud of my son as well. And I have to say that this is a generation of very strong people.
Yep.
And we just have to guide them a little bit. That's our
Yes.
role, us older folks, especially
We
me.
educate, we give the tools.
Yes, but I'm
And
very
that's all we
proud
can
of,
do.
of what he represents, and I think that we need to do
Same.
more supporting of that.
Absolutely. All right, so
Agreed.
don't forget to like and subscribe. Please share this video on other platforms. Every time you click one of those little buttons on the bottom of there, it does promote and help us with the algorithm. Also, if you'd like, there's all kinds of different ways you can support us now. So if you'd like to see us continue the show and get better equipment, all that stuff, we do have a GoFundMe link and my Cash App in the description of the video. So you can look for
And
it
it's
there.
really supporting the work of Stop Moms for Liberty as well, because you are the
Yep.
outlet that we have for,
true. I didn't think
you
of
know,
that.
podcasting. So
That's true.
yeah, let's do another fundraiser, guys. See what we can do.
Absolutely. Thank
yeah.
you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. And once again, happy Black History Month. And like
Amen.
always, guys, we'll talk to you soon.